Hi everyone, and welcome to AI Bytes. I'm Wayne from WAYNAI, and we're here at the lovely JCU Ideas Lab. Today in the hot seat, we have Cara Hunter. Would you like to introduce yourself, Cara?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Cara Hunter. I'm a Social Democratic and Labour Party MLA from Northern Ireland, and I'm our party's education spokesperson with a huge focus on AI safety and women.
Well, so how are you seeing the movement of AI in comparison to the last few years to what we're seeing moving forward at the moment?
I'm thankful. Like in my part of the world, in Northern Ireland, I think we've seen I suppose elected representatives arriving at the place of urgency, recognising that, AI harms are real and are in our communities each and every day. While it's brilliant to see the level of innovation and use of AI in the workplace, which has made things more streamlined, more cost efficient, time efficient, is brilliant. Yep. But I think for a long time, sadly, there has been a refusal of government to acknowledge AI harms and AI regulation, particularly through that gendered lens and how it impacts women and girls.
Well, so the reason I called you in for a chat today was we were chatting outside before about AI and how it can be manipulated. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I can manipulate AI, ChatGPT a lot to be showing my clients and to actually embed stuff from my clients straight into there. If it can be manipulated that way, how do you see it affecting human rights when someone's asking ChatGPT for an answer on something, but people have manipulated through other sources on the web?
Yeah, I think it's a big topical question right across the globe right now, is looking at how there's bias in AI, particularly when it comes to AI-assisted hiring and certain names, certain backgrounds. There can be an element of bias when AI is used. So I think that really draws in the importance of ethics with AI and transparency around how it functions, what data it's using, what it's been trained on. And we had talked earlier about the different AI methods that exist. And yeah, there's elements of bias that we as the public might not know, and we use them every day.
Yeah, and especially when you've got the likes of ChatGPT, Copilot, all owned by Microsoft, and then you've got Gemini controlled by Google. Mm-hmm. There's concerns, I guess, around the consistency, as well as like who's owning that. People are talking to these AIs. Like I know people who use them for psychiatric help, and they're telling these AIs all of their feelings. Mm-hmm. What sort of controls should we be putting in place to stop the owners of these AI assistants?
It's really interesting because we're talking a lot recently in our country about where's the guardrails? Where do we put them up? Like you're talking about people using AI for counselling, mental health support. And often we'll see that can go one way, which is people feel supported and listened to, but it can also go the other way, which is like AI psychosis and over-reliance on AI chatbots. Yeah. So I think, speaking as an elected representative, I think it all comes down to balance. I think there's a beauty in emerging technologies. It's making our lives more simple. But I think you're right, when it comes to AI being used, how it's trained, transparency is key. Yeah. Maybe even something as simple as, ChatGPT could come back, give you an answer, and then say, but also I could answer this way when it does options. Yeah. Just so I think the user has a full comprehensive understanding of all data that could be offered to them.
Absolutely. And also probably, I think we were talking before about that it should be giving you the sources of its information, because AI is, I was talking in my speech last week about how AI is pulling in data from a range of different places, but it will only pull it from certain areas. But if it's, so it wants your attention. AIs like Facebook, AIs like Google, they want to keep your attention once they've got it. So they're not going to be giving you links to websites moving forward. How do we counteract that to enforce AI to say, this is where I got my data from?
It's a great question. For me, I think it all comes down to regulation. One gap that I have found in my time working in politics is the people regulating and the people lawmaking and shaping policy around AI regulation and transparency are not educated on AI themselves. And thus I think there's a gap for a lack of regulation, just as you're saying there about the importance of sources, because we know that AI can be used politically. It can be used to heighten tensions, whether they're racial tensions, whether they're sectarian tensions. And I think there is an importance in sources being added to the material that it gives us as users, to ensure that we're tackling disinformation and misinformation. And once we have a source and you can maybe peel back what paper it came from, or what news it came from, I think it really helps us.
It's like reference points, like when we're in school. If we had to write a project, we actually had to put the references at the back. AI should be mandated to do the same thing. So how do we actually get this through with government to be able to start regulating it more?
Well, I think in our country it might work different to here. It's essentially about lobbying and ensuring that those in power recognise the urgency of this issue, and in a number of ways it will be incredibly positive, especially when it comes to things like we had talked about earlier downstairs, AI education. So young people know, yes, AI might spit out a couple of these answers, but that's not everything, education at that level. But I think you're right, when it comes to the regulation piece, it's a matter of recognising how disinformation, misinformation is shaping so much of our political conversations as we speak. And the importance of lawmakers in these positions of power recognising, again, that urgency of the importance of having sources attached to the content that comes back out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should definitely have more conversations like this moving forward. And I think that everybody should really be focusing on what they're using AI for and what the potential outcomes are. Thanks so much for your time, Cara. It was really, really lovely chatting with you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.